Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palo of the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another issue of Warhammer 40k Combat Patrol for this week. We have issue number 18. But before we jump into it, as per usual, if you like this type of content, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and of course, drop me a comment down below. I love hearing back from you guys. It goes a massive way to helping out the channel too. Now, issue 18 of Combat Patrol magazine. It is part 2 of 2, so we are currently still missing issues 11, 12, 13, 16, 17, at least. I'm not too sure if we are now up to date with issue 18, because I can't remember. I should really look on the good old Hash It Work website to kind of work it out. But yeah, it is part 2 of 2. It's termagants. So we have 4 termagants on this sprue, the other 6 are on the other sprue, and so are the Ripper Swarms. So yeah, in all honesty, I will probably wait until they turn up before I build all of these, so I can build them all in one go. And then they will sit in the cupboard with the other ones ready for spray painting when the weather turns nice and warm and is preferable for spray paint. Anyway, going on from there, issue number 18, we're going to go straight into the paint section. So the paint section, obviously teaching you how to paint. If you're painting along with the guide from this magazine, you've got Wraithbone as your undercoat, and you'll be using this on pretty much all your tyranids. Baronard Burgundy for the carapace, which works very, very, very well. It's a pretty decent paint. Then you can use a Baron Black on things like the claws and the feet and such like. Screamer Pink for the tongue, because that makes sense. Squig Orange though for the gun, which I personally am not a big fan of. It's not the shade that I personally would choose. So I will probably do something slightly different with that. But each to their own, it's up to you. Once you've got all of them painted up, they're going to look something similar to that. But yeah, you get to have a bit of fun with it. So it is what it is. Moving on from there though, we're going to move straight into the Hive World, so another reading section. So the vast majority of the Imperium's population live on Hive Worlds, hellish wastelands that are home to huge hive cities that house billions of workers. Countless trillions have been born, lived and died knowing no sky but the rusted grating of the hive city above them. Hives are towering pillars that house billions of individuals. Within each lie vast maze-like cities. At the hive's highest spires the nobility dwell in enclosed palaces and sealed boulevards. As one descends down the hive, quarters become more cramped within the lower industrial districts. Workers are crammed into tiny habs that must navigate winding corridors on their way to work. So, hive cities are, basically imagine an entire city within a tower block, and that's exactly it. So, cramming everything into one building, one super sized building, that you unlikely would ever see the light of day. You would very rarely see sky, if at all, and even if you did, the outside air is not breathable. It's essentially you can't survive out there, or very, very unlikely to survive out there because of how bad it is. And yeah, because of basically the way that these hive cities work, basically the industrial runoff and gases that it produces and such like that are pumped straight out into the atmosphere, which then just absolutely decimates everything. And so yeah, makes it really, really horrible and quite rancid. But yeah, that's Warhammer 40k for you. Moving on from there though, you get a bit of information about gang warfare. So things like, if you think Necromunda, which is one of the other tabletop games set in the Warhammer 40k universe, that is set within a hive city itself. And it's all different gangs, so the very, very low ends of the hives and the underhives and such like are filled with gangs fighting for territory and control of artifacts, and to basically sell and make money that way. And yeah, pretty cool. And I do like the Underworld gang, the good old Necromunda gangs. I think they're pretty cool. Some of them are really, really good, so it's definitely worth playing. And also, they have some really, really good video games. So whether you're playing hired gun or good old Necromunda on Underhive Wars, I believe it is. Both really, really good games. So if you like your shooters, hired gun. If you like tactical games, go for Underhive Wars. Very, very cool games. Moving on, though, we're going to get a bit more information about the Death Worlds. So some worlds in the Imperium are deadlier than any other. Whether as a result of natural disaster, war, or alien invasion, these planets are known as Death Worlds. No natural wealth comes from these planets. Instead, the hardy survivors that dwell on their surfaces are their most valuable resources. So, Death Worlds are hellish even by the standards of the Imperium. Survival on these planets requires constant struggle. Every Death World is unique, but all are deadly. Katachan, for example, is a planet-wide jungle where almost every creature is some kind of deadly predator, including the plant life. So, gives you a bit of understanding about the Imperium and the kind of different worlds that they inhabit. So some of them, like industrial wastelands like the Hive Worlds, not very nice to live in. The Death Worlds, also not very nice to live in because everything is trying to kill you. So you have to be hardy no matter where you live, and being weak will probably see you getting killed, in all honesty. But that is the truth of Warhammer 40k and the Imperium for you. You also get a bit of information about Baal and Fenris as well, two of the other major planets that exist. So the Blood Angels call Baal home, and Fenris is home to the Space Wolves. Personally, I really like the Space Wolves. I think they're really cool. So, really good stuff. Moving on from there, though, we get a bit more information about the good old successor chapters. So these are... So the first founding chapters are the progenitors of countless successor chapters, new forces of Space Marines created from the gene seed of their predecessors and rooted in the traditions of their forebears. So, different ones kind of, the way they kind of denominate down. So, for instance, the Ultramarines have a very strict codex, and a lot of their kind of success chamber chapters have a lot of their kind of following and teaching and such like that, and they work off from there. And yeah, it all goes from there. So it all works very kind of down. So kind of rules drop downwards from there. And you get a little bit of information about Black Templars and such like that as well, and more. So, for instance, successor chamber chapters can include the Unnamed, Dark Hunters, Wolfspear, Black Templars, Flesh Tearers, Sons of Medusa, which is what I painted for good old Imperium magazine, Silver Templars, Dark Krakens and Raptors, which are all successor chapters. So they are not the first founding, they are a kind of a sub-section of one of the original chapters of Space Marines. Then we're moving on with more reading sections. This one's about the Tyranids, because it's a Tyranid issue, so we should be getting more information about Tyranids. So, Shadow in the Warp. The mere psychic presence of the hive mind is horrifying to behold. To those sensitive to the warp, the coming of a Tyranid hive fleet is a nightmare. A vast shadow in the warp that stifles out psychic communication and strikes fear into the heart of psychers. Almost all creatures in the 41st millennium leave some kind of resonance in the warp. I don't mention forged from the dreams and desires of mortals, which is the source of the psychic powers used by individuals such as the librarians. The Tyranids are no exception. Indeed, the entire Tyranid swarm is coordinated by psychic impulses. So, the warp is obviously very, very important within 40k mythology, and the Tyranids, are a little bit of a dark shadow that casts within the warp because of the hive mind and how the hive mind works. Basically, it eliminates psychic communications a little bit and kind of interferes with the psychic abilities of many other mortals and such like that. So, pretty cool stuff and pretty good information. It's nice to see this type of information as well, and how the Tyranids work and communicate and such like is always really, really good fun. So, happy days. Moving on from there though, we're going to go straight into the rules section. So we have data sheet abilities, so you get different, obviously you will have seen on data sheets there are abilities for certain good old units, whether it's destruction, bombardment, death frenzy and such like that. They all have their own individual rules. The idea behind these pages is to help teach you how to utilize those rules and abilities in your games. So if you wanted to, you can utilize certain things here, there and everywhere as and when it's appropriate, and you are going to need the data sheets to make sure that it is appropriate to use it and what it can do. So read through this, keep it in mind, and keep this type of stuff handy. Personally, the way I would do it is, obviously you get binders if you subscribe directly to the magazine. I don't care for them, but if you wanted to have a complete section for rules ready so it's at hand, you could literally just get a small one of the normal regular A4 ring binders, put all the rules in one section. So if you need quick reference rules, you can literally go straight to it instead of going through, is it in this folder, is it in this folder, and then flicking through and having to fight through other stuff before that. But yeah, entirely up to you though how you want to go about doing it, but that's personally how I would do it. But for now, obviously you do have data sheets, you have the data cards as well. Keep your data cards safe because they will help you out more than anything. And if you need to keep going back and having a look at these rules, obviously do so. Then we have our scenario. So it's a monster hunt. We have our good old captain and winged tyranid prime going up against each other, but then we also have 2 deployment zones. So we're going to use our captain in Terminator armor, our librarian in Terminator armor, and 5 Infernus Marines going up against our winged Tyranid Prime, 10 termagants, another 10 termagants, 3 Von Ryan's Leapers, and 5 Barbgorns, which sounds like a lot of units on the Tyranid side compared to very, very few on the Space Marine side, but you know, Space Marines pack more of a punch. So you can, in theory, take down that many good old Tyranids with that many Space Marines. So have a bit of fun with it and enjoy it. But once you're playing through, you're going to have something like that, and it is going to go a bit crazy, and obviously you're playing in a relatively smaller area, so it will be a little bit bonkers. So have a bit of fun with it, enjoy playing, that is the main thing, and yeah, you could have something that looks absolutely nuts at the end of it. But either way, good fun. So pretty cool stuff there. Happy days. So here's what it is. On this page though, we do get a little bit of information of what obviously is coming up within the next 20 issues. So it is Eldari and Chaos Space Marines. We're also going to get a new playmat, or battle mat, as if you want to call it, which we can combine with the current battle mat to give one big one. I believe we'll probably get 2 more of those as well, so we can have a big massive one and have a bit more fun with it. So some really good stuff to look forward to though with our good old Eldari and Chaos Marines. So one, the Wraith Lord, really cool unit, which I must admit I'm looking forward to. Not keen on its stance, but it is what it is. For the good old Chaos Space Marines, we have some really good stuff though. We have things like the Dark Apostle, we have good old the normal Legionnaires, and what's the others? I think we've got some Chaos Terminators in there as well, if I remember rightly, which are really cool. So some really good stuff to look forward to in those issues. Moving on from there though, before we can go into all of that, to round out what we get with the first 20 issues of good old Combat Patrol. The next issue, issue number 19, should be the Parasite and Mortrex. Now, whether mine will turn up on time, who knows? Or whether it'll be in order, who knows? So, I'm not going to say next issue, but we'll try not to anyway. Issue 20 is the Chaplain on Bike. This one is pretty cool. I do really like this guy. He looks pretty badass. And I'm not going to lie, I think there should be a whole group that look a bit like that within Space Marines, which would look pretty cool if they all had skull helms, which would be super cool and really, really interesting. But that is it. So, a fairly straightforward one. Obviously, there's going to be, I've got to wait until I can build up my good old termagants. A lot more of the reading sections in this one. So some of the issues are very, very thin on lore and history. This one's pretty thick, which is really, really good. And yeah, should be good fun. But for now, thank you very, very, very much for watching. And I will be back as soon as I possibly can with some more Combat Patrol magazines. And the other content now that it's almost written. So, will come eventually. I just need to go through it and have a good read, a good think about it to make sure it works properly. But for now, thank you very, very much for watching. I'll see you sometime soon. Bye-bye now.